Silence, sometimes it speaks louder than words. Sometimes it hides what the heart refuses to admit. And sometimes it leaves you wondering, why would a man, even when he misses you, keep his mouth shut? There is something powerful about silence, but there is also something dangerous about it. When a man keeps quiet, when he locks his words away even though his heart aches, it isn't always because he doesn't feel. Many times, it's because his pride is louder than his pain. His ego whispers to him, "Don't you dare say it. Don't you dare admit you miss her. Don't you dare look weak." And so, instead of reaching out, instead of being honest, he folds his arms, closes his mouth, and hides behind the wall of pride. That wall protects him, but it also keeps him lonely. Men are taught from the very beginning that vulnerability is dangerous. From childhood, he's told, "Boys, don't cry, toughen up. Don't let anybody see you weak." Those lessons don't disappear when he grows older. They grow stronger. And so when he misses someone, when the weight of absence presses on him late at night, he feels the battle inside. On one side is his heart, longing to speak. On the other is his pride, shouting, "Silence! You don't need anybody. Don't call. Don't text. Don't show her you're hurting." And most of the time, pride wins. Pride convinces him that silence equals strength, even when deep down it feels like weakness. The truth is, pride is the mask men wear when they are afraid of the truth. Because the truth is risky. To admit you miss someone is to admit that they matter to you. To say it out loud is to confess that a part of you feels empty without them. And that confession, though human, though natural, feels dangerous in a world that teaches men to stand tall, never bend, never need. So he hides behind his ego, pretending not to care, pretending not to feel, even when every thought in his mind proves otherwise. Pride says she'll think you're desperate. Ego says she'll use that against you. And the man listens. He listens until silence feels safer than honesty. But here's the irony. The silence that feels like protection often becomes the very thing that causes the most pain. He may think he's keeping his dignity by staying quiet, but what he's really doing is building distance. Every day of silence becomes another brick in the wall between him and the one he misses. He doesn't realize that by trying not to look weak, he creates the very weakness he was trying to avoid: loneliness, regret, and the heavy question of what if. Pride may stop him from sending that message, but it cannot stop the ache in his chest. Ego may silence his voice, but it cannot silence the memories that replay in his mind. And so he walks around with a straight face while carrying the weight of unspoken words. He scrolls through his phone but refuses to type the message that his heart is begging him to send. He waits for her to call first, waits for some divine sign that it's safe to speak, but deep down he knows it's not about safety. It's about pride. Pride wants to be the winner. Pride wants to say, if she misses me, she'll come to me. But the truth is, pride doesn't win, it just delays. It delays connection. It delays healing. It delays the moment when honesty could bring peace. This is why so many men stay silent, even when they miss someone deeply. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. Not because they don't care, but because they care more than they're willing to admit. Pride convinces them that silence is strength, when in reality it is chains. Chains that hold back their voice, chains that choke their truth, chains that stop them from experiencing the very thing they long for most: connection. But until they learn to loosen the grip of ego, until they understand that vulnerability is not weakness but courage, they will keep hiding behind silence. And silence, no matter how heavy, will always feel lighter to them than admitting, I miss you. There is nothing heavier than the words left unsaid. A man may miss you, he may think of you every single day, but still he holds his tongue. Why? Because in the silence he feels safe. Because in the silence he cannot be rejected. Fear of rejection is one of the strongest chains around a man's heart. He imagines the risk of reaching out, and in that imagination he already hears the door slam shut. He already sees the message left unread. He already feels the sting of being ignored, so instead of taking the chance, he convinces himself to stay quiet. Silence becomes his protection, but also his prison. You see, rejection is not just about the moment someone says no. Rejection echoes. For many men, rejection takes them back to every wound they've ever carried, times when they felt not enough, times when their love was overlooked, times when their effort was wasted. The mind remembers. The heart remembers, and so when he thinks about reaching out, when he considers saying, I miss you, all those memories of rejection rise up and whisper, don't do it. You know how this ends. That whisper becomes louder than his longing. It becomes louder than his truth. Fear of rejection also magnifies his imagination. He begins to create stories in his head, stories that may not even be true. She's happier without me. She probably doesn't even think about me anymore. If I call, I'll just look weak. If I send that text, I'll be an embarrassment. Notice this, none of these are facts. They are stories. Stories born from fear, stories born from insecurity. And yet, to him, those stories feel real. They feel so real that he acts on them. Instead of sending one message, he erases it. Instead of making one call, he puts the phone back down. His fear of rejection doesn't just silence him, it paralyzes him. The tragedy is this: silence does not remove the rejection he fears. It only creates a different kind of rejection, the rejection of himself. By staying quiet, he rejects his own feelings. By holding back, he denies his own truth. He may think he is avoiding pain, but in reality, he is creating a deeper kind of pain, the pain of regret. Regret whispers, what if you had spoken? What if she felt the same? What if you let your heart lead instead of your fear? That regret is heavier than any rejection could ever be, because rejection at least gives closure. Silence only leaves questions, and this is where many men are trapped, between the fear of rejection and the fear of regret. One feels immediate, the other feels delayed. One is sharp, the other is slow. And yet both hurt, so he chooses what feels like the easier pain. He chooses silence because silence is safe in the moment, but safety does not heal the heart. Safety does not bring connection. Safety only postpones the truth. And the truth is simple. Missing someone is not weakness. Wanting someone is not shameful. Reaching out is not defeat. The only defeat is when fear holds a man hostage and stops him from living his truth. But here's the hardest part. A man's fear of rejection is not always about the woman in front of him. It is about the mirror inside of him. If he does not believe he is enough, if he doubts his own worth, then every rejection feels personal. It feels final. It feels like confirmation of his deepest insecurity. And so, instead of risking that pain, he stays quiet, hoping that somehow silence will protect him. But silence never protects. It only prolongs the suffering. The man who is afraid of rejection is not weak. He is human. But until he learns that rejection is not the end, only redirection, he will remain stuck in the prison of his own silence. From the moment a boy takes his first steps, the world begins shaping him. Before he even knows what emotions mean, someone is already telling him what emotions he is allowed to have. Don't cry. Be a man. Toughen up. Those words sound small, but they carry weight, and over time, that weight becomes chains. Chains that bind his voice, chains that hold his feelings hostage, chains that teach him that silence is safer than honesty. By the time he grows into a man, those words are no longer commands from the outside. They have become his own inner voice. And so, even when he misses you, even when his heart aches, that inner voice says, "Don't show it. Don't say it. Don't feel it." This conditioning is not an accident. It is a culture, a system, a way of thinking passed down from one generation to the next. Fathers told their sons, coaches told their players, friends told each other. Society repeated it in movies, in music, in every corner of life. Real men don't break, real men don't cry, real men don't need. And so a man learns early that his emotions are a liability. To feel is to fail. To need is to be weak. To admit longing, to admit missing someone, that is not masculine, that is not strength, that is weakness. And weakness, he has been taught, is unacceptable. So what does he do? He learns to bury his feelings. He learns to smile when he wants to cry. He learns to laugh when he wants to scream. He learns to stay silent when he wants to say, "I miss you, I need you, I care." It becomes automatic, not because he doesn't feel, but because he has trained himself not to express. Think about that. Trained, conditioned, as if emotion itself were a disease that needs to be suppressed. And yet, what he doesn't realize is this. Every unspoken word becomes pressure. Pressure that builds, pressure that weighs him down, pressure that eventually breaks him from the inside out. That is why so many men walk around with heavy hearts but empty mouths. They were never given the permission to speak their truth. Imagine carrying love inside you but feeling like you're not allowed to show it. Imagine missing someone so deeply but believing that silence makes you stronger. That is not strength, that is survival. That is what happens when emotional conditioning runs so deep that it rewires how a man relates to himself. He doesn't just hide his emotions from others, he hides them from himself. He convinces himself that he doesn't care. He convinces himself that silence is maturity. But deep down, the truth is still there, waiting, and here is the cost. This conditioning doesn't just affect him. It affects everyone around him. The woman who wonders why he stays quiet. The friend who never hears what he's really going through. The family who sees his smile but never his pain. Because when a man is trained to hide his emotions, the world only sees the mask, never the man. And then people say he doesn't care. But that's not true. He does care. He just doesn't know how to show it without feeling like he is breaking some unspoken rule. A rule that was written long before he even had a choice. And that is why silence becomes his default. Not because it is who he is, but because it is what he was taught to be. Emotional conditioning runs so deep that even when his heart screams, his mouth stays closed. Even when he longs for connection, he waits. Even when he misses you, he hides. This is not the absence of love. It is the presence of programming. And until that programming is broken, until men are taught that emotions are not weakness but humanity, they will continue to carry their love quietly, their pain secretly, and their truth silently. Sometimes a man's silence isn't about pride. Sometimes it isn't about fear. Sometimes it's about waiting. He misses you, yes. He thinks about you, yes. He replays the conversations in his head, the laughter, the moments that mattered. But he doesn't move. He doesn't reach out. He doesn't call. He doesn't send the message. Why? Because he's waiting for you to make the first move, waiting for you to break the silence before he dares to step into it. This kind of waiting doesn't always come from arrogance. It comes from uncertainty. He wonders, am I still welcome in her world? Does she even want to hear from me? Has she closed the door and thrown away the key? These questions haunt him, and instead of answering them with courage, he waits for you to give him a sign, something small, a like on a post, a text, a hint of warmth that says it's safe to speak. Because in his mind, silence is not rejection, it's protection. And so, he stays on pause, hoping you'll press play first. Men who wait for you to move first are often men who carry a history. Maybe they reached out before and felt ignored. Maybe they loved openly once and were left standing alone. Maybe vulnerability cost them something they weren't ready to lose. So now, instead of risking it again, they wait. They convince themselves, if she misses me, she'll reach out. If she still cares, she'll show it. And though he feels the ache inside, though he longs for connection, he ties his hands and waits for proof. Proof that his words won't fall on deaf ears. Proof that his presence won't be unwelcome. But waiting comes with its own cost. Because when two people wait on each other, silence grows, distance widens, days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before you know it, the silence itself becomes the barrier. He may think waiting is safety, but waiting can also be loss. He doesn't realize that while he waits for you, you may be waiting for him. Both of you standing at opposite ends of the bridge, neither one willing to take the first step. And in that hesitation, connection dies, not because love was absent, but because action was. Here's the truth. Sometimes his waiting is not about hesitation. It's about strategy. He believes that if you move first, then he has the advantage. Then he knows for sure that you still care. Then he doesn't have to risk rejection. So he plays the waiting game, not realizing that love is not a competition. Connection is not about who blinks first. It's about who values truth more than fear. And yet, many men let pride and uncertainty twist into strategy, convincing themselves that silence is smart, when in reality, silence is self-sabotage. And so he waits. He misses you, but he waits. He thinks of you, but he waits. He scrolls through your pictures, but he waits. He imagines conversations, but he waits. Not because his heart is quiet, but because his fear is loud. Not because his love is gone, but because his doubts are strong. He's waiting for you to move first, to give him a signal, to give him permission. But what he doesn't realize is this. Sometimes the waiting costs more than the risk. Because while he is waiting, moments are being lost. Opportunities are being missed, and sometimes people are being lost too. Sometimes silence has nothing to do with you. It's not about pride. It's not about ego. It's not about rejection or even strategy. Sometimes a man stays silent because he's fighting wars you cannot see. He's carrying battles in his mind, in his heart, in his spirit. And when you're at war within yourself, there's little strength left to reach out to someone else. His silence in those moments isn't absence of carrots, the exhaustion of survival. A man may miss you deeply, but if his world is on fire, he doesn't know how to say it. He may be drowning in financial stress, wondering how to pay the bills, wondering if he's good enough to provide, wondering if he can stand as the man he believes he's supposed to be. He may be wrestling with failure, with dreams that haven't worked out, with the quiet shame of not being where he thought he would be by now. And in that storm, he chooses silence, not because he doesn't miss you, but because he doesn't want his pain to spill on you. His silence is not rejection. It is protection. Protection of his pride, protection of his image, protection of you from the chaos he feels inside. Men are often taught to measure themselves by their ability to handle pressure, to stand tall, to never fold, and so when life weighs heavy, when burdens pile up, he won't run to you with his fears. He won't call and say, "I'm breaking." Instead, he hides, he isolates, he pulls away. Because he thinks silence makes him strong. He thinks carrying it alone makes him a man. But what he doesn't realize is that silence in those moments doesn't heal him. It isolates him. It builds walls where bridges should be. It deepens the distance even as he longs for closeness. And here's the truth. Sometimes a man's silence has more to do with shame than with missing you. He may miss you desperately, but shame tells him, you don't deserve her, not in this state, not until you get it together, not until you fix yourself. So he keeps quiet. He convinces himself that reaching out while he's broken would only make him look weak, or worse, make him a burden. That silence is not born from lack of care. It's born from the weight of inner battles that he doesn't know how to share. He carries them quietly, even when they're tearing him apart. What many people don't see is that silence can be a symptom of struggle. The man who doesn't call may be the man who cries when no one is watching. The man who doesn't say, "I miss you," may be the man who whispers your name when he prays. The man who doesn't reach out may be the man who wants to but feels too broken to offer anything real. His silence is not emptiness. It is overflow, overflow of stress, overflow of fear, overflow of unspoken battles that consume his energy until he has nothing left to give. And this is the part that hurts the most. Silence can be misunderstood. From the outside, it looks like neglect. It looks like indifference. It looks like distance. But on the inside, it is struggle. It is a man trying to keep himself together, fighting wars in the dark while the world only sees his quiet. So when he stays silent, even though he misses you, understand this. It may not be because he doesn't care. It may be because he cares so much that he doesn't want to bring you into his storm. He is fighting his own inner battles, and until he learns that love is not about being perfect, but about being present, he will keep carrying his silence like a shield. Not all silence is weakness. Not all silence is fear. Sometimes silence is the language of strength. A man may miss you with every fiber of his being, yet he chooses not to speak it. Not because the feeling isn't real, but because in his world actions matter more than words. His silence is not empty, it is full of meaning. His quiet doesn't say, "I don't care." It says, "I care so deeply, I don't need to announce it." For many men, words feel fragile. Words can be twisted. Words can be doubted. Words can be taken back. But actions endure. So he stays silent, not because his love is absent, but because his way of showing love is different. He shows it in how he provides. He shows it in how he protects. He shows it in how he stands by you, even when his mouth doesn't move. His silence is not a void, it is a vessel carrying loyalty, patience, commitment, the kind of things that don't always need sound to be real. Think about it. Some men believe saying, "I miss you," every day doesn't prove anything if their actions don't align. They believe silence, combined with presence, says more than 1,000 words. They believe that when they show up, when they keep their promises, when they remain steady even in storms, that is louder than any declaration. To them, silence is not avoidance. Silence is discipline. Silence is proof that their feelings are not fleeting emotions, but anchored truths. But here's the part that confuses so many, because silence can be misread. To the one who misses hearing the words, silence feels like neglect. Silence feels like distance. Silence feels like absence. Yet to him, silence is respect. He doesn't want to cheapen his feelings by repeating them out of habit. He doesn't want to speak recklessly and make promises he can't uphold. So instead, he speaks through consistency. He speaks through time. He speaks through loyalty. His silence may not echo in the air, but it resonates in how he moves. And let's be honest, silence requires strength. It takes strength to withhold when every emotion inside is begging to spill out. It takes strength to believe that love doesn't always need to be spoken, that missing someone doesn't always need to be confessed. For a man, silence can be control, control over his impulses, control over his vulnerability, control over the emotions that, if unleashed, might overwhelm him or complicate what he values most, stability. His silence, then, becomes his anchor, his way of holding steady, even when the storm inside him rages. So when a man stays silent, even when he misses you, don't mistake it for emptiness. It may be his way of saying, I love you enough to show it, not just say it. I miss you enough to let my actions prove it, not my words. His silence is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of it. Because sometimes the loudest declarations are not shouted, not written, not even spoken. Sometimes the loudest I miss you is found in the way he never lets go, even if he never says a word. So why do men stay silent even when they miss you? It's not always pride, it's not always fear, it's not always conditioning, hesitation, or inner battles. Sometimes silence is pain, sometimes silence is protection, and sometimes silence is love in disguise. But here's the truth you cannot ignore. Silence is not absence. Silence is not nothing. Silence carries meaning, if you listen closely enough, because behind that silence there is always a story, a heart, a truth, and maybe, just maybe, it's not about breaking the silence. Maybe it's about understanding it, because once you understand it, once you see it for what it really is, then the silence itself begins to speak. And when silence speaks, it tells you more about a man than words ever could.